kind of rough. We will be setting up antennas early. Late? Is that Friday?
We usually start Saturday morning.
We usually start early Saturday morning, so around 8-ish, if you want to come up and help set up an antenna. We need many hands because there's like, 8 guide wires. And so on each, or 5, yeah, 4 up and 4 down. So yeah, it's a big job, and it's a lot of fun. So put that on your calendar if it's not already there, and plan on a potluck item because we're having sloppy joes.
Joe Costello said he's going up on Monday morning.
Right.
And my son and I are taking our trailers up there on Monday too, because we have to come back and get another set of trailers.
Yeah.
And are they still looking for somebody to drag the porta potties up?
I believe so. I believe we still are looking for somebody. It's really easy with even a SUV, a minivan, they can do it. We went up there in just a regular car. You had something?
I was going to say I might be able to hold the potties up.
Okay.
Carl, we'll be coming up Wednesday.
Wednesday?
It's a fun camping time. Okay. That's all I got. Any questions? Yes.
Is there going to be a map or something on the website?
There's GPS coordinates.
Is there? Okay, good, thank you.
And Trout Creek.
Turn left to Trout Creek.
Turn left at Trout Creek, you'll see us there.
Yeah, just so you know, there's a dirt road up the left-hand side of 40, right across from Strawberry, called Trout Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's what? It's not even a quarter of a mile up that road?
Yeah, it's not,
It's a
if you
long
can see it from the road.
So you can see it.
Yeah, you can see the campsite from the road.
From the road?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the only green area.
It's the only area that isn't covered by sagebrush. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Joe says he's still planning on being there Monday mid-morning.
Yeah.
Who is?
Joe?
Joe?
All right, before we move on, we do have somebody who wants to beg and plead for your services. So come on up and make your request.
All right, my name's Scott, and I am coordinating communications for the Squaw Peak 50 race. It's a 50-mile race. It's happening on Saturday, June 11th, and we are in need of at least one more radio operator. What we do is we track runners as they come into and out of aid stations, and we use the Runner Tracker app in our ham radios to relay that to our net control so that they can post it. We're trying to track people, and if they're late, we know that maybe they're lost because it seems like every year some well-meaning person looks at all that orange flagging and says, this is garbage, and takes it down. And then you got runners in the middle of a 50-mile race who miss turns. So we're there to try and help them get found before it becomes an emergency. So we're looking for at least one more person, but we can use a whole bunch more. If you want to sign up, come see me afterwards, or go to ucares.org, ucares.org. And there on the home page, you scroll down and there's a list of events, and the Squaw Peak 50 is one of those. Thank you very much.
What equipment do they need?
Oh, as far as equipment goes, you probably need something a little bit stronger than an HT, but I do have a radio that I could lend out if you are needing a radio. So we can figure out and get you some equipment if you're there. We do have some stations that require high clearance vehicles. The one that we're really in need of somebody is at the end of a dirt road, but I've seen Honda Civics and Toyota Corollas out there. So you should be able to get there with just about any vehicle. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Do we have Joy here? Is she here tonight? Okay. I didn't see her. So, on a personal note, we want to congratulate these new hams. Do we have any new hams here tonight? Well, let's give them a round of applause anyway. And congratulations to these upgrades. Do we have any of these guys here tonight? Anyway, give them a round of applause anyway. I saw a statistic once that as far as hams per capita, Utah is the #1 state in the country for number of hams we have. California has more hams because they got more capita, But this is a great place to be a ham. All right, now we're on to our presentation, and we'll turn the time over to Darryl. You're going to be amazed, I'm sure, by his knowledge. I was just kind of looking at some of the stuff he's done with contesting and DXing, and I'm sure he is going to do us proud here. So we'll get set up here and turn the time over to Darryl. I'll move this stuff. You can sit right up here.
There you are.
I don't know how we get the mic and the screen. This technical part's always the hardest. Well, that ain't right. Okay, that's better. Well, good evening. Nice to be with you tonight. I appreciate the invitation. I don't know whether he was...
Invitation or arm twisting with Noji?
It was an invitation, actually. Well, I won't tell you the whole story.
Dang, I almost got it out of him.
Somebody said a minute ago that the numbers are down. Is this the average number? Because if it's not the average number, the reason is probably because it was pre-advertised that I was speaking tonight. that accounts for the attendance. But I'm here to talk about a topic that I'm pretty passionate about, which is contesting. I know that you guys are somewhat familiar, at least, with the topic of contesting, because I know that you did a winter field day. I'll get to that in a minute, and you've been talking about field day here. Field day is usually the entry point into contesting for most people. All of the old-timer, big-time contesters that I know invariably say that they got their start at a field day somewhere. And in fact, that's true for me. Contesting is a little bit difficult to explain to a non-ham. I start out by telling people it's a game, like any other game. It's got players, got rules. You can win, you can lose. You have to employ some strategy to do well. And then I start getting questions like, well, so you just talk on the radio? And so what do you talk about? What do you do? Well, and you do it for how many hours at a time? Oh, I see. So what do you win? What are the prizes? How much money can you make at it? Okay. and you find out whether you did well, how well you scored, how long after the contest? 6 months, a year, whatever. It's a little difficult, so I just usually tell people it's like esports, online gaming, something like that. Though I don't know why I tell them that, because I've never done an online game in my life. I got no clue what that's all about, but I assume that it's similar. Here's the one part that I haven't figured out. They know how to monetize it. You can do that for a living, and apparently if you win, you can make as much as $3,000 by winning a really big tournament. Now, if we can just figure out some way that we can do that in ham radio contesting, sign me up. I'm ready to go. So I did go online and noticed that you guys did a nice effort for Winter Field Day. So again, that tells me that you know something about contesting. But there's a whole lot more to contesting than a Winter Field Day or a Summer Field Day. There are so many combinations and permutations. There's so many classes, so many. You can run high, low power QRP. You can run CW only, or phone, or digital, or mixed. On and on and on. There's a website, WA7BNM website, that lists the contests. There are over 400 contests in a year listed on that website. So there's more than enough opportunity to get on. So let's talk for a minute about the people who do contest. It turns out that there are three general categories of contesters. The first one is participants, which is the largest group probably. And these are people who just a lot of times get on a contest by accident. You're on the air and you tune across and you hear all this stuff going on and try and figure out what it is and think, well, maybe I'll figure out whether I've got any propagation of that part of the world today. Maybe I'm trying to do radio, maybe I'm trying to do antenna. Maybe I just figure, well, maybe I'll help somebody out a little bit and I'll figure out what they need and give them a contact. Maybe I'll have a little bit of fun. So that's a large portion of the people. The enthusiasts in this graphic here are those who take it a little bit more seriously and actually figure they'll get on and let's fire up a contesting program. Let's learn how that works. Let's figure out what, maybe I can actually learn how to do this and maybe I can win something or compete or, get a little bit more serious about it. Maybe it's a DX contest and maybe I'm looking to fill in my DXCC country count. This is a good opportunity. That's when the guys, the DX stations are on the air. So those are, enthusiasts. They get into it. And then there's the guys at the top of the period, the top 10 guys who are just absolutely crazy. And when I say that, it's a 48-hour contest. Let's say you're doing CQ Worldwide CW, and the guys that win will put in 48 and a half hours. I mean, I don't know how they do that, Seriously, they'll take maybe an hour's time off in the full 48 hours of the contest. They're just absolutely crazy and absolutely serious. I at one time aspired to be that, and I don't think I'll ever get there. I like to, as an analogy, talk about motorsports. So the casual participants, maybe they go down to the park there and rent time for half an hour to get on and drive cars around the circuit and just have some fun at it, and it's a great time. The guys who are enthusiasts get a little bit more serious there, and they maybe invest a little bit of money and buy themselves a helmet and do whatever you got to do to qualify to get on there and have a little bit of fun. I think I'm kind of an enthusiast as well. This is another level of enthusiasm, and I like to put this one up because those are actually cars that I've owned and raced, so I was a bit of an enthusiast when it came to motorsports. But the top of the heap, of course, are these kind of guys, the F1 people that, I don't know if you get on Netflix at all and watch whatever it's called, the F1 show, or the Formula One show. These guys spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on these teams, and it's a marvelous team effort, and it's an interesting show to watch. But this is total dedication, and there are people in the contesting world who do that. But the point that I want to make tonight is that casual contesters, those people who are the participants in that large group there, they are invaluable in a contest. Scott Wright, K7UT, is the editor of National Contest Journal. If you get interested in contesting, NCJ is the ARRL publication. It comes out every 2 months, and it is free. Simply get on there on your profile, check the box, and you'll get this. And he says more participation is better. The casual contesters make an invaluable, indispensable, he says, contribution. 2 quotes that really make sense to me. If there were no casual operators in the contest, it would be over in an hour, which is really true. All the big guys work each other and we're done. And the other one is the winner's the one who works the most stations who are not in the contest. So the casual contesters are valuable, If you've never done a contest, or I encourage you to get on and be a casual contester and play. Radio sport. Anybody ever heard of radio sport? Radio sport is the other name for contesting. It's the name by which it is known in most of the rest of the world. The ARRL program manager for contesting is Contesting and Radio Sport Manager. So it's a familiar term here as well. I like the sport part of radio sports because contesting is a competitive activity. It's a competitive sport, and the objective is get on there and work as many stations and as many multipliers as you can and be competitive and win. It is a sport. As in any sport, or in any sport, there are basically two classifications in my mind. One of them is individual sports, and you can name any number of those. And in an individual sport, if you participate in it for any period of time, you get to know how important dedication and practice and commitment is to doing well in that sport. If you become involved in team sports, then you learn that you take all the individual effort that you put in, you take all the skill, everything you've got to add to the game, you bring it into your team, and then you've got to learn all kinds of other qualities and values. You've got to learn how to participate with others, maybe sacrifice some of your own goals and interests to be an integral part of the team and really contribute to what you're trying to do. So sports, the comparison here between just regular sports and radio sport is a very close one because all of the same things apply. I am working, after only having been involved in contesting for, depending on how seriously you talk, 20 or 30 or 40 years, I'm still trying to improve on a pretty much weekly basis. I pulled this up off of Club Log this morning. Over the last 4 years, if you can see the orange bars there, those represent the CW QSOs that I have made. And I can't read it, in 2016, 4,359 QSOs and only 40.7% of them were CW. Each year I've been working, because I decided about 4 years ago I really need to up my game in CW. So last year I made 1,700, almost 1,800 QSOs, of which 70% of them were CW. I get on every week. On Wednesday there are a series of contests that are each 1 hour long, put on by the CW Ops organization. And there's one at 7 o'clock in the morning, one at 1 o'clock, and one at 9 p.m. And I do at least one, usually two, and sometimes three of those every Wednesday, just to keep things going. As much as I enjoy the individual aspect of it, I'm most interested in team competition because I think that's where the most fun is. I just don't think this is a sport or an activity that you can do well in the long run. You've got to do it with others, you've got to participate with others, you've got to learn from others, and at some point you end up teaching others as well. If I can get my mouse back here, I'm going to bounce around, skip here and there, and do some things. My personality is such that when I get started in something, I want to understand it as well as I can. And that leads me to do a lot of reading. At this point, I do a lot of searching on the internet. I'm out trying to find out as much as I can about the activity, in this case, radio sport or contesting. And a most important part of my learning is trying to do it from individuals who are the best. And the best people are to be found at Hamventions, specifically in a couple of areas. Dayton Hamvention I went to a couple of weeks ago, kind of kicking and screaming. I don't like to go to Dayton. I don't like to travel anymore, number one. Number two, Dayton's a long ways away. And the Hamvention, I suggest everybody should go once. This was my third time. And I went there for two reasons. The second reason was I wanted to go see the National Air Force Museum. And I'm here to tell you that that's worth a day. It was a wonderful thing to do. There's over 1 million square foot of exhibition. There are over 350 different aircraft there. And it was a treat, it was a delight to go there. You've got to like to walk though. We put in a lot of miles. Graydon, who was with me, told me we walked 5 miles that day, which is a long ways. That's my second reason. My first reason was that I wanted to go to Contest University. Contest University is in, I think its 40th year. It's always held the day before the regular Dayton Hamvention. And it's been put on for all those years by the gentleman on the left there, Tim Duffy. Tim is K3LR. He's the CEO of DX Engineering. And he's an extraordinary contester in his own right. But he is he has a contest station that he's been putting together for about 40 years now. And I'd love to be able to show you the pictures that I have of it, but I won't have the time to do that tonight. I'm going to show you how and why and where you can see them though. The gentleman next to him is Frank Donovan, W3LPL. He also has a marvelous station. And the two of them go head to head every year in all of the big major contests, and they trade back and forth positions 1 and 2. Frank is an incredible resource. He retired as chief engineer of General Dynamics, so the guy knows a little bit about systems and how to put projects together. He talks about the $1 billion budget for this project and the $1 billion project over here that he did. He knows how to put a station together. And these two guys, in fact all four shown on the slide, are really at the top of their game in many ways. And what's really great about it is they're willing to share everything they know, absolutely everything. When contest comes around, they fight tooth and nail. They fight for every single cue, and if they win by 0.5%, that's what they're looking to do. But they'll tell you everything they did to get there. Every year at the contest dinner, they induct someone into the Contest Hall of Fame. And both Tim and Frank are members of the Hall of Fame. The gentleman in the green shirt there is Craig, K7UT. Craig, for the last 15 years, has been building a station. And you can go online on YouTube and look at the videos, and he lays out step by step how he went about the process of building his contest station. If you followed what he did by the book in your circumstance, you couldn't go wrong. It's a marvelous tutorial on how to go about an engineering project. This year, Craig was inducted into the Hall of Fame. The gentleman on the right there, on the right, is Joe Rudy. He has a great contest station. It turns out that he was the main speaker at Contest University this year, at Contest Dinner this year. It's kind of interesting because he was also the speaker at the first Contest University 40 years ago, so bookends there. Joe gave a really interesting talk. Should be noted that Joe also played a little bit of baseball. I'm not a follower of baseball, so I don't know all the stats, but that pitcher apparently is famous, and Joe Rudy is famous because he made that marvelous catch out in left field in the '72 World Series, and he saved that game and he saved the entire series. And over his playing career, he has a number of Golden Glove awards, most valuable player any number of times, and 3-time World Series winner. Other thing that was interesting to me in his talk, two things. One is that he's a ham and was at the time, and as they traveled on the road, he took his radios with him. He would always get the top floor in the hotel, and he said, I couldn't wait to get home from the game that day, you need to get to the hotel, so I could get on the radio and see who I could work, which I thought was crazy. But he says the bellhops all knew me because I had my extra gear and I had all my radio stuff, and so I don't know what they ran from me or ran to me for the tips, but that's kind of interesting. What's interesting to me as well is the talk that he gave. His main theme, or at least the thing that came out of it for me, was he talked about teamwork, he talked about coaches, he talked about mentoring, he talked about the people who had helped him in the game, both in the beginning and all the way through. He's a huge, huge fan of teamwork, and I'll talk more about that in a minute here. I want to I'm going to skip ahead to this area right here. I was licensed a while ago, 1958, so I've been at it 60 some odd years. I've been involved in most of the aspects of ham radio. I became less active, let's say. I wasn't inactive in radio, but less active for most of the 70s and 80s while I was raising a family and growing a business. And in the 90s, I decided I wanted to get active and get going again, so I thought, well, maybe what I ought to do is get into contesting in a more serious way than I am now. So I called on the phone the only guy that I knew that was a contester. Turns out he's one of the better ones in the state, and that was Alan Brubaker, N07X. And I said, Alan, I'm interested in getting into contesting. He said, okay, great. We need more contesters. And we talked a bit, and he said, so how serious do you want to be? And I said, well, I'm fairly serious. I want to get into it. And he says, okay, move. What? And he says, well, if you're going to be competitive, there's no way you do it from Utah. So you move to Maine, move to the Northeast, move somewhere else, because you'll have better propagation and it'll all work out better. The alternative to that is you kind of recalibrate your thinking as to how serious you want to be. So I thought about it for a little while, and I said, well, instead of that, maybe I should do DXing instead. That might be a better course. So following my general pattern, I decided, well, to learn about that, and maybe in the back of my head I'd heard about de-expeditioning. I thought maybe if I went to the place where these guys go, then maybe I can learn something about it. So I went to the International DX Convention, which is typically held in Visalia, California, and that was in 1996. And when I got there, through no fault of my own, just by an absolute quirk, I ended up being seated at a table with the guys from the Central Arizona DX Association. These guys were absolutely the best in the game when it came to de-expeditions. Every year there's kind of an informal competition among all the guys who go out and do this as to who's going to be the best de-expedition. And every year they ended up being one of the best de-expeditions. And so I sat down at dinner with these guys, and they said, well, who are you and where'd you come from and whatnot? And I said, I'm here because I want to learn about DXing and de-expeditions. And they said, well, what's interesting is that we're trying to, we're always interested in having new guys into the sport. And if you're really interested, then just keep in touch with us. Matter of fact, why don't you join our club? And you can keep in touch with us. And I said, okay, that'd be great. So I did join the club. And that year, 2 weeks later, was one of the times I went to Dayton. And I was in a booth at Dayton, and the guy on the upper left there, Warren, walked up behind me. I was trying a particular paddle. And Warren said, that's my favorite paddle. I really love that. And I tried a few others, and I ended up buying the one that he recommended that he really loved. But he said, by the way, you said that you were interested in the expedition. And, yeah, I am. He said, okay, I'll keep you in mind. And 2 weeks later, I'm sitting at dinner and the phone rings, and I went to the phone and, hi, it's Warren. He says, you wanted to go on an expedition, right? I said, yeah, I do. And he says, okay, we're going to 8Q7. Should we sign you up? Sure, I'm ready to go. Okay. I sat down and said, I wonder where 8Q7 is. Well, it turned out to be the Maldives, and so that was the first expedition I went on with them. With this bunch of guys and others, I was able to go to the Burma, or Myanmar as it is called today, 2 different places. Was able to go to the Spratly Islands, which, if you know anything about de-expeditioning, Spratlys is an interesting topic. It's a country that 7 different countries think they own, this little piece of island in the middle of the South China Sea. And there have been 2 instances, one where some folks were killed on the de-expedition, another one where they were chased away, but it was an interesting place to go. So anyway, these guys really took me under their wing, really helped me. I've got all kinds of stories I can tell about all my expeditions, but that's what I'm not here to do tonight. One really crucial thing that happened was that we timed our expedition to be coincide with the CQ Worldwide CW contest. And so what we did was we divided it up. So you take 20 meters, you get 15, you get 80, you get 40. So I got 15 meters and found out what it's like to be the DX and CQ Worldwide contest, which is just phenomenal. And I ended up with a world record from zone 26 in the CW contest. It's probably the only world record I'll have to my name ever, but it was kind of cool. So that got me back on the DX, or on the contesting bug. I then was able to get in with the guys of the Northern California Contest Club, which had been formed and broken off from the DX Association, and got tied up recently here with the Arizona Outlaws. Mike KC7V, one of the guys from CADXA, a friend of mine, is the president of this club, and he's agreed to let me come join their club. So having joined these clubs with these folks who really were the top people in the activity was great. I learned a lot, but I thought it would be nice if I had somebody local that I could do this with. Unfortunately, in 2003, we lost 2 really great hams, K7UM and K7UT. They were both good friends of mine. And exactly 2 years later to the day, I was able to get K7UT as my personal call sign, and K7UM, I became a trustee for that call for my club. And shortly thereafter, in 2005, August of 2005, we formed Utah DX Association. The club was to be a DX club with an emphasis on contesting as well. So that's how we started out. So I went out and did anything and everything I could do to approach people to talk about DXing and contesting. And this was the roster from the original Utah DX Association back in the 60s. And 9 of those guys on that roster were still around and still wanted to DX. So they joined the club. And over the next 2 years, we ended up with about 100 members in the club. The terrific thing about it for me was that I started meeting people that I could get together with and do things with. The first one was Mark, W7HPW, which many of you may know. And he called me up one day and wanted to come meet with me because I could check his cards. I'm a DXCC card checker, so he drove up and checked his cards, and we got to talking, and we really hit it off, and we've become great friends. But he invited me down to a contest at his station. I don't know if you've ever had him come and speak to you. That's his small amplifier that he runs. It's a Western Electric amplifier. It's the only one of its kind in the world today. It is 100% operational. It's better than when it was new, I think. And it's about a 5 kW amplifier, and a very nice antenna array. So that was one of the first things that came out of forming the club. The second was Mike got a hold of us, came down and wanted to join the club. He lived in Price, been there for a couple of years, and he was a contester. He already had one one tower in the air, the one on the left, and the one in the middle was already up with antennas. The one on the left was just the tower with nothing on it, and the one on the right didn't exist yet. So we said, well, let's pitch in and get things going for you. So we finished putting up the antennas, put up the towers. The two on the left are 100 foot, the one on the right is 120. And the antennas on that right one are my antennas that I donated to the project. The equipment there and the inset, those are also my amp and radio. So I contributed a little bit to it. We put together a contest station, and we had about 5 or 6 of us who regularly contested from there. While we were putting up antennas, he invited a friend to come down and help out. You might recognize the name again. That's Joe Rudy, the baseball player. Joe just had to have his picture taken with me, so I accommodated him. And got to know him pretty well over 3 or 4 days that we were climbing and doing work. So he invited me to come up to his station and contest. His station is, this one has been torn down. He's built 5 different contest stations, and each time he's moved, he's put up 7 or 8 towers and populated them nicely. Just to give you some idea, that blue line, that's a tower on the left. That had OWAs that had 48-foot long boom, 5-element, 20-meter monobanders. There were 4 of them. So it was 5 over 5 over 5 over 5. And that stack was fixed into Europe. And it was a cannon. You could just talk to anybody anytime. And this antenna here, that was an 80-meter tower, 150-foot tower, and it had a full-size 3-element 80-meter Yagi on it. Weighed about 600 pounds, and it was just a gun. It was amazing. The fellow that I'm operating here, and the guy behind me is George George, W2VJN, who is the engineer and designed all the top 10 devices products. And if you ever have interstation interference, you want to solve it. One of the ARRL publications is Interstation Interference, and George wrote that. And it's an excellent book on the topic. So learned a ton from him, from Joe, and from the other 6 or 7 guys that always contest there. Another guy who joined the club was Bill, N7VM, and this is his home out in Harriman. He called me up one day and he says, "You're a property manager. Would you like to come manage my property, because I'm going to have to move to California for a job?" And I said, "Sure, Bill, I'd love to do that." By the way, also on the property, there was a little outbuilding and a 100-foot tower with 3 Aggies on it. And I said, Bill, we ought to do something with that. And I recalled an article in QST from 1996 that talked about remoting of antennas. And the station was located in Alameda, down at the harbor. And I went down in 1998 and visited that station, and always thought I'd like to do something with that. So Bill said, "Well, that sounds like a good idea." So what we did was we dug a trench, laid some conduit in there. We pulled all of the hard line and all the coax and all the control cables from the house, ran them from the base of the tower into the barn, and were able to set up a station in the barn that we were able to rotate to remote. In keeping with the theme of who was there and who was helping, there were any number of guys from UDXA that came out and lent a hand. This is a slide that I pulled out of a presentation that I did at UDXA about 6 or 7 years after it had been formed. There are 48 call signs there. They represent tower projects that we did for people, antenna parties we called them. 25 towers that we put in, and other antennas that went up and came down and whatever we did, antenna parties. we were pretty active in that regard for the first 6 or 7 years. And I think I was on, all but 2 of those projects, so I got my climbing in. So anyway, this is the layout of the 5-acre property out in Harriman. This is the house. That is showing, right? This is the barn. This is the 100-foot tower. This is about a 70-foot tower that we put up. This is a listening array, 3-element vertical listening array. This is a K9AY loop listening array. The yellow line is a beverage pointing into Europe, and this line is a beverage pointing into JA to Asia. So that's the layout of the antennas, and we have at least one, usually at least 2, and sometimes 3 choices, 4 antennas per band. That's just the listening antennas. And inside the barn, this is the main station here. This is the one that well, they all morph and change. They're always different depending on the day you go down there. But we typically have 1 station on the air. We have set it up on occasion running 2 stations at a time, and this was a setup for a field day that we did from there. This is just a shot of the control station. That's from my condo where I live, about 15 miles away. I live in Draper, and the station's out in Harriman. I have run this station as a remote station for since 2012. I can control all of the antennas, rotate all of the antennas, control the amplifier, run the radio. This is a K30 down here. That's basically the faceplate to my K3 that's out at the site, and it's just like having the radio sitting there. I seriously sit down to operate, and I have no thought in my mind that the radio isn't sitting in front of me. It's just seamless. We did an effort there for field day in 2018 where we had 2 guys off site. One was in Syracuse, one was in Layton. 2 of us were on site in Harriman, and did a field day which we pretty handily won. Now, I'm going to skip through 2 things here very quickly. The first one is this, field day. You guys are going to go do a field day. As I said, most contactors get their start in field day. That's what they get a taste for what it's all about. I started doing them early in 1960, did them mostly with Utah Amateur Radio Club. In 1997, I got a 60-foot tower on a trailer, and so I started doing operations with that. In 97 and 99, I did a couple out in Antelope Island up in the parking lot. And then I started going up to Wolf Creek Pass, doing them up there. And in all cases, there were 2 or 3 or 4 people with me running these operations. When we got UDXA started up, I had the club buy this tent, and we started expanding the scope of things. And we had 4 stations, and then 5 stations, and then whatever. Last year, it was in 2011, we had 4 stations in the big tent. We had 3 stations individually and 3 other tents. We had 4 towers, 200-foot towers and 2 60-foot towers. We had 20 operators scheduled and operating, and we had the 6th highest score overall in field day that year. Out of whatever it is, 3,500 entries, something like that. So we did pretty well. I kind of stepped away from that, and I've kind of stepped away from UDXA, and the current management since 2011 has decided that there's really no interest in doing field days among the club members, so they've stopped doing it.
2011 or 2021?
2011. So field day is on for me this year as well, going back up to Wolf Creek Pass. The other thing that I'm passionate about is 7QP. I'm the captain for 7QP for the state of Utah. Started it in 2006. I've operated every year but one where I had an issue that I couldn't. And I've operated as a mobile station 9 times, as a fixed station 3 times, and portable 4 different times. I tell you that because I like variety. I like to do different things. I like to get different people involved. I just like to, shake things up, spice it up a little bit. The second year, I did a solo effort, and nothing went well. Nothing went well. I thought I could figure out a cool way to run a generator that I had sitting down here and ran a battery charger and this and it. It didn't work. It was cold. I gave up. I did it for a few hours and I ended up spending the afternoon at the family history library doing some other stuff. It just didn't go well. The other times, the next few times I did it, I enlisted some help. Got some other teammates. This year, this was 2009, Jim, W7CT, came along. We did just about 1,000 QSOs that day in motion. This was showing us parked at a county line, Duchesne Emery, I think, county line. And I found out that having at least one guy, if not two guys with me was really helpful. Last year, Graydon and 7RXL came along with me, and that's him operating from this location, running phones. So that's my mobile stuff. In terms of portable stuff, this was 2011, that same year that we did the field day. We decided to go out and do a portable operation out in the desert. We took 2 trailers, we put up 2 towers and this mast over here. Put up 3 Yagis, W7HPW went along again, K7UT, Bryce, whom you probably most of you know. Dave Banner, N7BAN, if you know him. Chris, KF7P. If you want to buy tower-related equipment, KF7P.com is the place to go. KG7C and myself. We did a good effort. We only ended up with 600,000 points. It was the highest score of any entry that year. A couple years later, 2017, I got involved with NG7M, Max. We went down to the county line. This is the Wesley Powell Museum in Green River, which happens to be on a county line. I can't turn that volume down, I'm sorry. Anyway, enough of that. We found out that the winds come up in the afternoon. And that was a little bit of a problem for us. That notwithstanding, we battled through it and won the class again. Then in 2018, I formed Great Salt Lake Contest Club because I wanted to have, again, a local organization, get some people together, see what we can do. Went back to Green River the next year. My tower was disabled, broken, so we used one that Max had that he'd used once before. And you know, that same wind came up at the same time, and that tower didn't survive. So we've decided that tower is not the answer. But let's get really current in the next 3 or 4 or 5 minutes here. 7QP for 2022. We just finished it not too many weeks back. And let me tell you, this is a portable operation. Let me tell you how this relates to field day. This was the manual that, or the operating manual I put together. I'm going to go to a different place. This is the manual. It's about 20 pages long. What we did was put together a manual based on my de-expeditioning experience, the portable operations, everything that I've done. Said how should this take place? Well, let's plan it for 7QP. What's the date? What's the time? Where are we going to go? Who are the operators? What are the resources? Where's the operating site going to be? Here's a map how to get there. Here's roughly where we were last time. Here's the entry class we want to be in. Here's what we think the band plan ought to be. Here's the antennas we're going to use. Here's how we're going to do antenna switching. Here's the layout of the station. These are the tents we're going to use and the power that's going to be available to us. These are all the tools, the equipment, everything that we need to take. So there's the checklist for us. How are we going to get this gathered together? How are we going to test it? Make sure it's all operational. What are we going to do? And there's a little bit more information on putting up the tower. So let me just skip through this. What we did was we went through that planning process. Then we decided let's test it all out. So 2 weeks before, we set up the tower. We put the antenna that we were going to use on it. We set up tables that we were going to take with us. We put the computers in place, put the radios in place, set up the switching networks, loaded up the databases, fired up the generators that we were going to use, and exercised the whole thing for 2 or 3 hours. We made absolutely sure that what we were going to use worked exactly the way it should. Then it was all packed up and staged, and we got ready to go. The antenna we're going to use is a tower that had been kind of disused, been sitting for about 20 years, and I was able to buy that. And after only a few $1,000s and a few hundred hours of time, we ended up with a mobile 100-foot tower, and that's it, packed up just before we drove away. This is where we went to. I've tried the sound, but it'll probably do it to you again. Anyway, that's where we were on the Millard-Juab County line, which is, if you go down by Delta, you go out to the Intermountain Power Plant, and after you get there, you go another 20 miles or so out into the desert to the northwest, and that's where we were. This is the tower. You park it, oriented in the right direction, unload everything off of the tower. I've got a C3 tri-bander that I use. I've probably built that thing 40 times. I have contested with it and done mobile with it, so I can build that antenna in about 20 minutes. We mount the antenna on the boom. We hook up the guy wires. We hooked up the coax and the control cables. And after you got to that point, about 10 minutes later, it's standing in the air. Down here, that red cone, that marked the location for the anchor points. We use the screw-in auger-type earth anchors, which we'll probably stop doing because it took anywhere from 2 to 4 of us to try and twist those things in the ground. But we did it, and we got them back out. So when it was in the air, we only put it up to about 70 feet. We built the tent, put it next to it. This was kind of the magic. These are bandpass filters from low-band systems for 10, 15, 20, 40, and 80. And they're feeding into a triplexer and a diplexer. So we can have 3 stations running simultaneously through the triplexer, feeding one tri-band antenna. And we have a diplexer here. I put up a 40, 80 meter fan dipole, and we can have 2 stations running simultaneously driving that fan dipole. So theoretically, we could have 5 stations on the air at the same time. The isolation on these is terrific. It's about 80 dB on these filters and something similar on the triplexer. So we operated, there was no interference back and forth. You couldn't even tell the other guy was on the band. You could go within a few kcs of the other signal and just never hear them. We ran 2 stations. I took this shot at 11 o'clock that night, just after I stopped. I closed down, said, that's it. Graydon was still doing a few cues on phones, so I took a shot of him and stepped out, and we were through. So how did we do? There were 843 logs submitted for the contest. We were first in our class. We were first on all portable operations. We had 394,000 points, which was roughly double the next place station. I pulled up the stats for all stations entered, all the reported scores, and we were only second. We got beat by one other crew, but they only had 436,000 points, so it wasn't too bad. 2 other quick things on this. What's nice is 4 of those top 20 scores are guys basically in our club affiliated with us. I think that's a pretty darn good showing. Secondly, up here you can see these X's. These are remote stations. Remote operation has just become the norm. Top 10 stations everywhere, remote. Let me just see if I can show you this. This is a super contest station, W7RN, just out of Reno. 7 or 8 towers, 200 to 300 foot towers with a whole raft of antennas on it. This is their station inside. This station was operated remotely by 4 operators in California running high power. They're the station that beat us by 40,000 points, so we didn't do too bad. Come on, let me get back there. Let me just do this. Here's the takeaways. 1, if you're interested in contesting and/or radio sport, The best publication you can get is called Amateur Radio Contesting for Beginners. It's written by Doug Grant, who's marvelous. It's the ARRL store, you can find it, and I read it the last 2 days. It's terrific. I absolutely agree with everything in it. Secondly, online, there are all kinds of resources, a lot of videos. I like to go look at the videos of other club meetings. I've probably been to 15 different club meetings of people in the East Coast, down in the Southeast, wherever, have an interesting topic that has to do with contesting, and I go look at it. Contest University, all of the things available at Contest University for the last 6 years are online. You can go on and look at all the videos.
Free.
And it's all free. Get an Elmer, talk to somebody, or be an Elmer. Do both. Join some kind of a team effort. This is not a hobby that you do alone. Get involved with other people. Get on the air and practice. Those are the takeaways. And I've used all my time, so I can't even take questions, so you can't heckle me. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to thank Darryl. That was an amazing presentation, and yeah, we are so grateful that he came out tonight to do that for us. Let's give him another round of applause. That was with all of those towers. All right, now we're going to turn the time over to Wendy to do door prizes. So we've got kind of the standard array of prizes. We've got a handheld antenna, an ARRL certificate, and a flashlight. For the first three gifts, if you get picked, you can choose from one of those three. And then we'll give away the Pockers J-pole and the radio, okay? All right, Wendy.
Ooh, you almost jumped out. Okay, see, they're jumping out already. I'm shaking them too hard. Okay, can you all hear me?
Yep.
All right, I think I got a voice to carry if I just use it. First winner for 605. Yes. You get to come up and pick one of our three prizes. You want the flashlight, the membership, or the antenna?
This is on the street line.
Oh, see, there you go. I got one too, and that was the best gift I could get. All right, here we go. Next winner. 596. Anybody want to claim 596? All right, come on up. Oh, you better check your numbers. Better check mine. Okay. 596?
Nope, 597.
So who's next to you that got the ticket, huh? Are you gonna
Probably
claim?
Carl.
93.
Okay, you're about going once, going twice. All right, I'm going again. 594. Come on up and get your ticket. Another big prize. You can have an antenna or the flashlight.
I'll take the antenna.
There you go. Great antenna. All right. And our third prize is 609. So close. Hey, great. You got the flashlight there. Now, I know Carl announced the barbecue on Saturday. When I went to the barbecue, I think it was my very first barbecue that I went to, and I think it's been there 4 or 5 years. It kind of all blurs. I didn't know what I was winning, but I won a Pockers J-pole. I was like, this is great! I didn't know what it was, but man, I learned. I learned what it was, and I use it every day. I've got one in my house, so I use it all the time.
And by the way, I think this antenna comes with installation.
It comes with installation, so. if you
No,
win-
he's not here to defend himself, so.
I know, so I'm volunteering.
You're volunteering him? All right, so this winner can pick either the radio or the antenna. And the number is 621.
Well, that's you.
Yahoo! All right. You take the radio? You never have enough radios.
That's because Craig builds more antennas than he can use.
Hey,
Isn't that true?
It's true.
I've already got a box.
Yeah.
You don't have 6 or 8, you're nobody.
All right, and our grand prize for the antenna is $598. $598. Need an antenna? Get another antenna.
All right, that concludes our meeting for the night. We thank everybody for coming out. If we could get you to help stack up the chairs. Remember, all the stacks should have a chair with wheels on it, and all those chairs are on the end there. So just go across and stack them up. We will be doing dinner at Apollo Burger for anybody who is interested to come out and spend some more time with us. We'd appreciate that as well. And again, thanks to Darryl and thanks to Heath back there for making the room available for us. We do appreciate all of the service they give us. Thanks, guys.